Missing person. Emma Chen, 19 years old, disappeared from Bloomington, Illinois on March 14, 2010. Case number 3323-87. Let me pull some evidence here and walk you through what we know. Fair warning, this one's got more questions than answers. But sometimes that's how these things go. First piece of evidence. The initial missing person report filed by Emma's father, David Chen. Now what's interesting here is the timestamp. David didn't report Emma missing until March 16th, 2 full days after she vanished. When I was working active cases, that delay always raised flags. Most parents know within hours when something's wrong. But David Chen? He waited 48 hours. His explanation was simple. Emma was a college sophomore at Illinois State, lived off campus, and often stayed at friends' places without calling home. But here's what bothers me. Emma was the kind of daughter who called her parents every day. Every single day. Her mother, Lynn, told us Emma would text good morning and call before bed like clockwork. So when that stopped on March 14th, that should have been the red flag. I remember interviewing David, sat right across from me in the station, hands shaking as he filled out this form. Kept apologizing for waiting so long to report it. I thought she'd come home, he said. I thought she'd just come home. Now, was David's delay innocent parental concern? Or did he know more than he was telling us? 28 years of experience tells me that sometimes the people closest to the victim are the ones with the most to hide. Maybe Emma called home Sunday night, told her father something that made him wait to report her missing. Or maybe David knew exactly where Emma was going that weekend and why she might not come back. This surveillance shot from the Milner Library at Illinois State, last confirmed sighting of Emma Chen. March 14th, 2:23 p.m. She's walking in alone, carrying her backpack and what looks like a coffee cup. Now, I spent a lot of time in libraries growing up. Small town kid, you know? Library was my escape. So I understand the rhythm of these places. Students come and go, but most have patterns. Emma's pattern was Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 to 5 p.m. Always the same table on the 3rd floor near the psychology section. The librarian, Mrs. Patterson, lovely woman, been there 30 years. She remembered Emma well. Quiet, polite, always returned books on time. But here's the thing that stuck with Mrs. Patterson. Emma seemed distracted that day. Kept checking her phone, looking around like she was waiting for someone. Was Emma meeting someone she knew? Someone she trusted enough to arrange a library rendezvous? Libraries feel safe, public, but they also have quiet corners where conversations can't be overheard. Maybe Emma chose the library specifically because she thought she'd be protected there. Library records show Emma checked out 2 books that day: Abnormal Psychology by Anne Kring and The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. Now, the psychology book makes sense. She was a psych major. But The Gift of Fear? That's a book about trusting your instincts when you sense danger. Makes you wonder what Emma was feeling in those final days. Could Emma have been researching her own situation? Was someone in her life exhibiting the warning signs that book describes? Maybe a classmate who was becoming obsessive, a coworker who paid too much attention, or even someone closer to home whose behavior was starting to frighten her. Security shows her leaving through the main entrance at 4:47 p.m. After that, nothing. Emma Chen simply vanished. Emma's cell phone records. Now this tells us a story, if you know how to read it. See all these calls and texts? Emma was social, connected, talking to her parents, her roommate Sarah, her study group, her boyfriend Jake Morrison. But look at March 14th. The pattern changes completely. Morning starts normal. Text to her mom at 7:15 a.m. "Good morning, love you." Standard Emma. Then a call to Jake at 9:30 a.m. lasted 12 minutes. Jake told us later that Emma sounded stressed, said she needed to talk to him about something important, but not over the phone. Here's where it gets interesting. At 11:45 a.m., Emma receives a call from an unknown number. Call lasted only 37 seconds. We traced that number back to a prepaid phone, purchased with cash at a gas station in Normal, Illinois. The phone was never used again after that call. 37 seconds. Just enough time for someone to deliver a message, maybe make a threat, or give Emma instructions on where to meet. The prepaid phone tells us whoever called didn't want to be traced. This wasn't a friend calling from a borrowed phone. This was calculated, planned. Then at 5:12 p.m., 25 minutes after she left the library, Emma sends her final text message. It went to her roommate Sarah. "Running late, don't wait up." But here's the thing that kept me up nights. Sarah was visiting her family in Springfield that weekend. She'd been gone since Friday. Emma knew this. So why send a text to someone who wasn't even there? Unless Emma wasn't the one who sent it. Maybe Emma's phone was already in someone else's hands by 5:12 p.m. Someone who knew enough about Emma's life to know she had a roommate named Sarah, but didn't know Sarah was out of town. Or maybe Emma sent it deliberately as a coded message, a way of letting someone know she was in trouble without alerting her captor. The phone went dead after that text. Never pinged another tower. Either the battery died, or someone made sure it stopped working. Crime scene photos from Emma's dorm room. Now, I've been in a lot of college dorms over the years, usually not for good reasons. But Emma's room? This told me everything about who she was. Look at this organization. Bed made perfectly, books arranged by subject, everything in its place. Emma was methodical, careful, the kind of person who planned ahead and didn't take unnecessary risks. Her parents raised her right. But here's what jumped out at me immediately. Her overnight bag was missing. Emma owned a small purple duffel bag that she used for sleepovers and weekend trips. Her roommate Sarah confirmed it wasn't in the room, and it wasn't found anywhere else. Even more telling, Emma's medication was gone. She took a daily prescription for anxiety, something she dealt with since high school. The bottle should have been on her nightstand. It wasn't there, and we never found it. So Emma didn't just vanish suddenly. She packed. She took her medication, her overnight bag. This wasn't a random abduction. Emma left voluntarily, at least initially. The question is, where was she going, and did she arrive safely? This evidence points to two possibilities. Either Emma was running away from something or someone and packed to disappear on her own terms. Or someone she trusted convinced her to pack for what she thought would be a safe trip, maybe even a romantic getaway. Think about it. If you're 19 and someone you care about asks you to pack for a surprise weekend trip, you'd bring your anxiety medication and your overnight bag, right? You'd trust them enough to follow their instructions, especially if they knew you'd be alone in your dorm all weekend. On her desk, you can see her day planner. Emma was old school, wrote everything down by hand. Her entry for March 14th had one thing written: important conversation, 5 p.m. No location, no name. Just those 3 words that might hold the key to everything. But who was important enough in Emma's life to rate a planned conversation? Her boyfriend Jake? Her father David? A professor she trusted? Or maybe someone new? Someone who'd been calling her late at night? Someone who'd convinced her this conversation would solve all her problems? Jake Morrison's statement. Now, Jake was Emma's boyfriend of 8 months. Engineering major, seemed like a decent kid when I interviewed him. But you know what 28 years teaches you? Everyone's hiding something, even when they don't mean to. Jake's story was consistent every time we talked to him. Said Emma called him Sunday morning, March 14th, around 9:30. She was upset about something, wouldn't say what over the phone. Wanted to meet that afternoon to talk face to face. Here's the part that always bothered me. Jake said he couldn't meet her that day. Had a group project due Monday, couldn't get away. So he suggested meeting Monday after classes instead. Emma agreed, but Jake said she sounded disappointed, maybe even scared. Now here's where my detective instincts start tingling. Jake was Emma's boyfriend, supposedly loved her. But when the woman you love calls scared and needs to see you immediately, do you really choose a school project over her safety? Makes me wonder if Jake knew more about what was frightening Emma than he let on. She kept saying it might be too late by then, but wouldn't explain what she meant, Jake wrote in his statement. I thought she was being dramatic. Emma could be like that sometimes when she was stressed about school. That phrase, "it might be too late," suggests Emma was working against some kind of deadline. Maybe someone had given her an ultimatum: meet by Sunday or face the consequences. Jake's refusal to see her might have forced Emma to handle whatever was threatening her all alone. Or here's another theory. What if Jake was lying about the whole conversation? What if he did meet Emma that Sunday and something went wrong? His alibi was solid for the afternoon and evening, but that morning phone call? Only Jake's word that it happened the way he said it did. Jake's alibi was solid. Spent Sunday afternoon and evening in the engineering lab with 3 other students, working on their senior project. Security cameras confirmed it, multiple witnesses. But here's what keeps nagging at me. Jake knew Emma better than anyone. If she said something might be too late, why didn't he drop everything to see her? 20 years of marriage taught me that when someone you love says they need you, you make time. Jake was a good kid, but he was also 19 years old. Sometimes I wonder if things would have turned out different if he'd just skipped that project and met her for coffee. Now this is interesting. Security footage from a Shell station on Veterans Parkway in Normal, taken at 6:34 p.m. on March 14th, about an hour and 20 minutes after Emma's last text message. The person in this footage purchased a prepaid phone card with cash. The clerk, a college kid named Marcus, remembered the transaction because the customer kept their hood up the entire time and paid with exact change, $20 in ones and fives. Here's the problem. The image quality is terrible, and the person's face is completely obscured. Could be Emma, could be someone else entirely. Height and build are roughly consistent with Emma, but that's not saying much. Half the college students in town could match that description. But here's what's interesting. This gas station is exactly 2.3 miles from where Emma's car was found, and the timing fits. If Emma left the library at 4:47, drove to wherever she was going for that important conversation, and things went wrong, this could be her trying to get help. Think about it. Emma's phone goes dead after that final text at 5:12. An hour and 20 minutes later, someone's buying a prepaid phone card with cash, keeping their face hidden. Maybe Emma escaped from whoever took her and was trying to call for help without being traced. Or it could be someone else entirely, buying a phone to communicate with Emma. The prepaid card was never used, never activated. It's sitting in our evidence locker right now, still in its packaging. But here's another possibility that keeps me up at night. What if this isn't Emma or her captor, but someone who knew Emma was in trouble? Someone who wanted to help but was too scared to get involved directly? Maybe they bought the phone card planning to tip us off anonymously, then lost their nerve. I must have watched this footage 100 times over the years. Sometimes I think I can make out Emma's face in the shadows. Other times, I'm convinced it's someone else. But that nagging feeling in my gut, the one that kept me up nights for 15 years, tells me this person knows something about what happened to Emma Chen. Emma's car, 2006 Honda Civic, found 4 days after she disappeared in the parking lot of Eastland Mall. Now, Eastland was the old mall, the one that was already dying by 2010. Half the stores were closed, security was minimal, perfect place to abandon a vehicle if you wanted it to sit unnoticed. The car was locked, no signs of forced entry or struggle. Emma's purse was still in the passenger seat, wallet intact with cash and credit cards untouched. That ruled out robbery right away. Her textbooks were in the back seat, along with a coffee cup from the campus Starbucks. Still had coffee in it, though it had gone moldy by the time we found it. Here's what was missing. Emma's keys. Car was locked, but we never found her keys. Either Emma locked the car and took her keys with her, or someone else locked it and kept the keys. The car showed no signs of being hot-wired or broken into. The mall security guard, an older gentleman named Frank Torres, told us he first noticed the car on March 16th, 2 days after Emma disappeared. Thought it was odd because the car never moved, never had anyone come or go from it. But Eastland was so dead, Frank figured it was just some college kid who'd forgotten where they parked. By 2010, I'd been to Eastland Mall maybe a dozen times for various calls. Place gave me the creeps even in daylight. Broken lights, empty storefronts, echoing hallways. If someone wanted to disappear or make someone else disappear, Eastland was the perfect place to start. The car's location bothered me for another reason. It was over 6 miles from Emma's last known location at the library, in the opposite direction from her dorm, her usual hangouts, anywhere Emma would normally go. Someone drove that car to Eastland deliberately, knowing it would buy them time. But who had access to Emma's car? Emma herself, obviously. Jake had borrowed it a few times, so he might have had a spare key. Her father, David, had helped her buy the car and might have kept a set of keys. Or maybe Emma gave her keys to whoever she was meeting, trusting them enough to let them move her car to safety. Here's what really bothers me about Eastland Mall. It's the perfect place to transfer someone from one vehicle to another. Multiple entrances, minimal security, easy highway access. If someone wanted to move Emma without being seen, Eastland was ideal. The timing of the car's discovery also raises questions. Frank Torres said he first noticed it on March 16th, but Emma disappeared March 14th. That's 2 days for the car to sit there unnoticed. Was Emma being held somewhere nearby during those 2 days? Or was her captor waiting for the perfect moment to abandon the vehicle and disappear? This letter arrived at the station 6 weeks after Emma disappeared. No postmark, no return address, just slipped under our door sometime during the night shift. Written in block letters, obviously trying to disguise the handwriting. The letter reads, "Emma Chen trusted the wrong person. Look closer at people who knew her schedule. She didn't leave willingly. Someone is lying." Now, anonymous tips are a dime a dozen in missing person cases. Most lead nowhere. But something about this one felt different. The specific mention of Emma's schedule, the certainty that someone was lying. This wasn't some random crank. This was someone with knowledge. We had the letter analyzed for fingerprints, DNA, paper composition. Everything came back clean. Whoever wrote this knew how to cover their tracks. The paper was standard copy paper, available at any office supply store. The ink was from a common Bic pen. But here's what kept me thinking about this letter. The phrase, "trusted the wrong person." That's personal. That's someone who knew Emma was trusting by nature, knew she saw the good in people. Emma's family and friends all described her the same way. Kind, optimistic, always willing to help someone in need. The reference to her schedule is what really got my attention. Emma was a creature of habit. Library on Tuesdays and Thursdays, work-study job on Mondays and Fridays, dinner with her parents every Sunday. Someone who knew Emma well would know exactly where to find her at any given time. This wasn't written by a stranger. This was someone in Emma's circle, a classmate, a coworker, maybe even a friend. Someone who knew Emma trusted people too easily. Someone who watched her follow the same routine week after week. Someone who felt guilty about staying silent. But why stay anonymous? Fear, obviously. But fear of what? Or whom? Maybe the letter writer knew who took Emma but was afraid of becoming the next victim. Or maybe they were involved somehow, and their conscience finally got the better of them. I always wondered if this letter came from another student. Maybe someone who saw something, but was too scared to come forward officially. College campuses are small worlds. Everyone knows everyone's business. But no one wants to get involved in a police investigation. The phrase, "she didn't leave willingly," suggests the writer knew the circumstances of Emma's disappearance. Not just that she was missing, but how she went missing. That's intimate knowledge, the kind you only get from witnessing something or being told about it by someone who was there. 15 years later, I still keep this letter in my active files. Someone out there knows what happened to Emma Chen, and they tried to tell us. The question is, are they still alive? And would they be willing to talk now? Emma's work schedule from the campus bookstore. Now Emma was responsible, the kind of employee who never called in sick, never missed a shift without notice. Her supervisor, Carol Martinez, told us Emma was one of their best workers. Always early, always professional, always willing to cover for other students. Look at this schedule. Emma was supposed to work Friday, March 19th, 5 days after she disappeared. Carol said Emma never missed work without calling, never just failed to show up. If Emma couldn't make it to work, she'd call me 2 days in advance to find coverage, Carol told us. But here's what's interesting about this schedule. It shows Emma requested to change her shift on March 12th, 2 days before she vanished. She was originally scheduled to work Thursday, March 18th, but asked to switch to Friday instead. When we asked Carol why Emma made the change, she said Emma told her she had something important to take care of on Thursday. Emma wouldn't elaborate, just said it was personal, and she'd make up the hours on Friday. That something important was supposed to happen March 18th. But Emma disappeared March 14th. Whatever she was planning, she never made it to that appointment. Here's what I think happened. Emma was trying to resolve whatever was threatening her. Maybe she'd arranged to meet her stalker on Thursday, thinking she could convince them to leave her alone. Or maybe she was planning to confront someone she suspected of watching her, following her, making those late-night calls. The schedule change shows Emma was taking control, trying to handle the situation herself. But something went wrong on Sunday, before she could execute her plan. Either her tormentor moved up their timeline, or Emma was forced to meet them earlier than she'd intended. I spent a lot of time thinking about this schedule change. Emma was the kind of person who planned ahead, who organized her life around her responsibilities. So when she rearranged her work schedule, it meant whatever she was planning was important enough to disrupt her routine. Think about it. If you're planning to disappear voluntarily, you don't reschedule work shifts. You just don't show up. But if you're trying to solve a problem and get back to your normal life, you make arrangements to cover your responsibilities. Emma was planning to come back. The bookstore was Emma's safe space on campus. Small, quiet, familiar faces. Carol said Emma often stayed late just to chat, sometimes did her homework in the back office during slow periods. If Emma was feeling threatened or scared, the bookstore would have been one of the first places she'd go for help. But Emma never made it to work that Friday. Never called Carol. Never picked up her final paycheck. For a girl who was always responsible, always dependable, that silence spoke volumes. Sarah Williams was Emma's roommate and closest friend on campus. Sarah's statement, taken 6 days after Emma disappeared, gave us our best insight into Emma's state of mind in those final days. According to Sarah, Emma had been acting differently for about a week before she vanished. More quiet than usual, jumpy when her phone rang, checking the locks on their dorm room door multiple times before going to bed. Emma kept saying she felt like someone was watching her, Sarah wrote. She'd look over her shoulder when we walked across campus, check behind us to see if anyone was following. I thought she was just stressed about midterms. But here's the detail that always stuck with me. Sarah said Emma had started carrying pepper spray, something she'd never done before. Emma bought it at the campus safety office on March 10th, 4 days before she disappeared. When Sarah asked why, Emma just said she wanted to be more careful. 4 days. Emma felt threatened enough to arm herself just 4 days before she vanished. What happened during that first week of March that made Emma suddenly fear for her safety? Sarah also mentioned that Emma had been receiving phone calls late at night, calls that seemed to upset her. She'd take the phone out into the hallway so I couldn't hear the conversation. When she came back, she'd be pale and shaky. I asked her about it, but she said it was just her anxiety acting up. Those late-night calls could be the key to everything. Someone was contacting Emma privately, saying things that frightened her enough to hide the conversations from her best friend. Was it someone making threats? Someone she knew who was becoming obsessive? Or someone offering to help her with a problem, but only if she kept it secret? The most troubling part of Sarah's statement was about Emma's plans for that weekend. Sarah was visiting family in Springfield, leaving Friday afternoon and returning Monday evening. Emma knew she'd be alone in the dorm all weekend, and Sarah said Emma seemed nervous about it. Here's what really gets me. Emma's stalker would have known about Sarah's trip. If they'd been watching Emma closely enough to know her schedule, they'd know when she'd be most vulnerable. That weekend, with Sarah gone, was the perfect opportunity to approach Emma without witnesses. I offered to cancel my trip and stay with her, but Emma insisted she'd be fine. She said she might stay with Jake or go home to her parents. But when I talked to Jake and Mr. and Mrs. Chen, none of them had heard from Emma about staying over. So Emma lied to her best friend about her weekend plans. She let Sarah believe she had somewhere safe to go, when in reality, she was planning to be alone. The question is, was Emma planning to meet someone that weekend? Or was she trying to protect Sarah from whatever was frightening her? Maybe Emma knew her stalker was escalating, knew they were planning something for that weekend. By lying to Sarah about having safe plans, Emma ensured her roommate wouldn't cancel her family trip out of concern. Emma was protecting the people she loved, even if it meant facing danger alone. Or here's another possibility. Emma did have plans to meet someone that weekend. someone she thought she could trust, someone who'd convinced her they could help solve her problem. But Emma didn't want Sarah to know, because she suspected Sarah wouldn't approve of the plan. Sarah's guilt over leaving that weekend was obvious in every interview. "If I'd stayed, maybe Emma would still be here," she told me through tears. But I've learned over the years that what-ifs don't solve cases. They just break hearts. The truth is, Emma's disappearance was probably planned to coincide with Sarah's absence. Whether Emma planned it herself or someone else orchestrated it, that empty dorm room was crucial to whatever happened next. Local newspaper coverage from March 25th, 11 days after Emma disappeared. Now, media attention can be a double-edged sword in missing person cases. Sometimes it brings in crucial tips. Other times it just brings out the cranks and attention seekers. This article ran on the front page of the local section. Good coverage, respectful tone, focused on the facts. The reporter, Janet Morrison, no relation to Emma's boyfriend, did a solid job presenting the case without sensationalizing it. But here's what I found interesting about the timing of this article. It ran exactly 1 week after we found Emma's car at Eastland Mall. By then, we'd exhausted most of our immediate leads and were hoping public attention might shake something loose. The article generated 43 phone calls to our tip line in the first 24 hours. Most were well-meaning but unhelpful. People who thought they'd seen Emma at various locations around town, none of which panned out. But 3 calls stood out. First was from a woman named Patricia Holmes who lived near Eastland Mall. She called to say she'd seen a young Asian woman arguing with someone in a dark car in the mall parking lot around March 15th or 16th. By the time we followed up, Patricia couldn't remember any more details, couldn't describe the car or the other person. Second call came from a gas station attendant in Peoria, about an hour north of Bloomington. He thought he'd seen Emma buying snacks and using the restroom around March 20th. When we showed him Emma's photo, he wasn't certain it was her. The third call was the most interesting. Came from a man who refused to give his name, said he had information about Emma but was afraid to come forward. When our desk sergeant tried to keep him on the line, he hung up. The call came from a payphone at a truck stop outside Normal. We sent a unit out there, but whoever called was long gone. That anonymous caller haunts me. Someone knew something about Emma's disappearance, felt compelled to reach out, but was too terrified to follow through. Was it someone who witnessed her abduction? Someone who knew her captor? Or maybe someone who was supposed to help Emma but failed her somehow? The fact that he called from a truck stop suggests he might not be local. Maybe a trucker who saw something along the highway, or someone who was just passing through town when Emma disappeared. But truck stops are also places where people go to disappear themselves. Isolated, anonymous, full of strangers. Sometimes I wonder if that anonymous caller was the same person who slipped the letter under our door. Someone who knew something but was too scared to get involved officially. Fear makes people do strange things, even when they want to help. Or here's a darker possibility. What if the anonymous caller was Emma's captor himself? Some killers get a thrill from inserting themselves into the investigation, from watching police chase their breadcrumbs. Maybe he called to see how much we knew, to gauge whether he was safe or needed to run. The newspaper ran a follow-up article 2 weeks later, then coverage gradually died down. Missing person stories have a short shelf life unless there's a dramatic development. But for Emma's family, every day without answers was an eternity. Emma's bank records tell a story of their own. College student, living on a budget, typical transactions, coffee shops, textbook purchases, gas for her car. Nothing unusual until March 14th. At 4:15 p.m., about 30 minutes before Emma left the library for the last time, she withdrew $200 from the ATM at First National Bank on Veterans Parkway. Now, for a college student living on financial aid and a part-time job, $200 was significant money. Emma's normal spending pattern showed she rarely carried more than $40 or $50 in cash. Small purchases, mostly using her debit card. But that day, she took out 4 times her usual amount. The ATM was equipped with a security camera, but here's the frustrating part. The camera malfunctioned that week and wasn't recording. Just our luck. The bank's IT department confirmed the system had been down for maintenance since March 12th and wasn't restored until March 18th. But the withdrawal itself tells us something important. Emma didn't just vanish spontaneously. She planned for whatever was about to happen. $200 was enough for gas, food, maybe a cheap motel room for a few days. Emma was preparing to be away from her normal life. The question is, was she planning a voluntary disappearance? Or did someone force her to withdraw that money? The timing suggests Emma made the decision herself. No one was forcing her to go to the bank. But what happened afterward? Did she use that money for her own purposes? Or did someone else end up with it? Here's my theory. Emma withdrew that money because someone told her to. Maybe her stalker demanded cash as part of some twisted arrangement. Bring $200 and I'll leave you alone. Or maybe someone offered to help her disappear, but they needed money for gas, food, fake documents. $200 was also exactly the right amount for a bus ticket to somewhere far away. Chicago, St. Louis, Kansas City, all within range for that much cash. Maybe Emma was planning to run away from her problems, start fresh somewhere her stalker couldn't find her. But here's another possibility that chills me to the bone. What if Emma was forced to withdraw that money at gunpoint? Someone could have been waiting for her after she left the library, forced her to drive to the bank and empty her account before taking her somewhere private. Emma's account showed no activity after March 14th. No debit card purchases, no ATM withdrawals, nothing. For a 19-year-old college student, that's almost impossible unless she's dead or being held against her will. The fact that Emma's cards were never used suggests either she's deceased or she's being held by someone smart enough to know that electronic transactions leave trails. Someone who understands how police investigations work, who knew exactly how to make Emma vanish without a trace. Her parents, David and Lynn, had access to the account and checked it obsessively for months after Emma disappeared, hoping for any sign of activity. Nothing. That $200 withdrawal was Emma's last financial footprint, and it vanished with her. So there you have it, 12 pieces of evidence, 15 years later, and Emma Chen is still missing. Somewhere out there, a family is still waiting for answers. David and Lynn Chen, who trusted their daughter would come home safe. Emma's friends, who lost someone they loved without explanation. The evidence tells us Emma was scared in her final days. Someone was threatening her, watching her, making those late-night phone calls that left her shaking. She tried to protect herself, bought pepper spray, changed her work schedule, withdrew cash for whatever she was planning. But Emma also trusted someone she shouldn't have. That anonymous letter writer knew it, and they tried to tell us. Someone in Emma's circle, someone who knew her schedule, her habits, her trusting nature, used that trust against her. Did Emma meet someone she thought she could count on? Did she go willingly to that important conversation, only to find herself in danger? Or was she trying to escape from someone, using that weekend when her roommate was gone to disappear on her own terms? I've got my theories, but theories don't bring missing daughters home. theories don't give families closure. Only the truth does that. Emma Chen would be 34 years old today. She'd probably be married, maybe have kids of her own. Her parents are still waiting for their phone to ring, still hoping their daughter will walk through the door and explain where she's been. If you know something about Emma's disappearance, if you were on that campus in March 2010, if you remember anything unusual, if you know who made those threatening phone calls or wrote that anonymous letter, please speak up. Emma's family deserves to know what happened to their daughter. Sometimes the smallest detail, something that seemed unimportant 15 years ago, can break a case wide open. A conversation you overheard, a person acting strangely, a car in the wrong place at the wrong time. It all matters. You can contact the Bloomington Police Department or reach out through our tip line. Information can be submitted anonymously. No one's asking you to be a hero, just to help a family find peace. Emma Chen trusted the wrong person, but maybe today, someone will trust enough to tell the truth. That's all for today's case. Until next time, remember, if you know something, say something. These families are still waiting.